Here's a crash course guide to learning how to play the Gundam card game for Magic players. First off, card types. The main card types are units, pilots, commands, and bases. Additionally, you have resources, those are your lands, and of course, tokens. Next, let's look at the anatomy of a card. So the cost of the card is going to be up here. It has a level and a cost. The level is essentially the turn that you're going to play it on. It counts how many resources you have at that time, and then the cost is how many of them you have to tap to play it. Additionally, you have attack power and HP, which is power and toughness. Additionally, you have the card type. Here's a unit, the name, the text box with its abilities, and traits. Now, sometimes you'll see space and earth here. They don't do anything in the game yet. Traits are the card types like goblin, elf, etc., etc. And then this regards linking, which we'll talk about later. So before we get into some of the keywords and timings and things like that, let's talk about what the board actually looks like. So, in the right corner, you have your deck and your graveyard, your trash. Then you have the battle arena and your resource area. This is where your lands go. Then you have a separate area that doesn't really have a magic parallel. This is kind of going to work like your life total. This is your shield area, and I'll show you how that works. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to draw your 5-card hand. You're allowed 1 mulligan. You can mulligan by returning those 5 cards to the bottom of your deck, drawing another 5, and then shuffling. After you draw your hand, you take the top 6 cards of your deck and put them like this in your shield area. Each player starts with an EX base token, which doesn't do a whole lot on its own, but we'll get into how bases work in a second. Next, let's look at how a turn works. So it starts with your start phase, which is essentially your untap. You go into your draw. Then you have your resource phase, which is taking a resource from your resource deck here and flipping it like that. You're going to do that every single turn. You're going to get 1. Then it goes into your main phase, which is essentially everything else, including combat, followed by the end phase, which only really matters when a card says at end of turn, do a thing, and then you pass the turn. Now, in this game, the player who goes first does get to draw a card, but the player who goes second starts with an EX resource on their field, which is a land, but when you use it, it blows up, so it's a one-time use. Now I'll take you through a turn. So, I'm going to draw my card for turn. Then, I'm going to take this resource and put it like that. We're assuming that I was player 2 here, so I have an EX resource and a regular resource. So now, what I'm going to do, I'm level 2 because I have this EX resource. I'm going to pay 1, and that'll allow me to play this GM. It's a level 2. I need to have 2 resources in the zone. It costs 1. I paid 1, and now I have a 2/2 dude with no abilities. Hooray! So how does combat work, and how do you win? So this game does have its equivalent of summoning sickness, so since I just played this guy, I can't attack with him. But if I was able to, you would tap this to declare an attack, and the only legal target that I have right now is my opponent's shield area, which is similar to attacking them directly, the way that magic works. However, there is an exception. So if my opponent had their unit out and had attacked my shield last turn, and their thing was tapped down, I would then have the opportunity to declare this rested creature, tapped, as my target instead of the shield area. Now, like I mentioned before, each player starts with an EX base token, which is a 0/3, which means that this thing is going to be able to eat 3 points of damage before your shields start to get hit. Now, the way damage works in this game is it's cumulative. So it doesn't fall off at the end step like magic damage does, and when you deal combat to something, it will deal its combat damage back, the same as combat works in magic, but it doesn't fall off. So let's assume that my opponent just hit my base for its 3rd point of damage. My base is gone. and they have another creature. So the way that combat works in this game, you don't attack with everything at the same time. You attack individually until you're out of attacks or choose not to. So let's say they hit my base, they have another unit, they're going to attack my shield. Your shields each have 1 HP. If a shield is hit with any amount of damage, it destroys 1 shield, unless a card specifically says that it can hit 2 shields. So let's assume that I'm getting hit for 1. When you get hit on your shield, you're going to flip a card over from your shield area. Now, one of 2 things can happen. Either the card has a burst ability, which this does, or it doesn't. If it doesn't, it goes to the trash. If it does, we're going to see what it does. So, this is a command card. These work as your instants and sorceries. Think of the word main and action there as sorcery speed and instant speed. So, this burst ability says activate this card's main. Now, the timing, since it can only happen when bursted, timing allows you to do it. So, I'm going to choose 1 enemy unit with 5 or less HP and return it to its owner's hand. For the purposes of this, we don't have that board state set up, but that would happen immediately before my opponent's next attack. So that would allow me to bounce their thing and call it a day. So then this is going to go to the trash. So let's go back to command cards for a second. You saw how a burst ability works, but let's go through what main and action means. So main is your sorcery speed. You can use that at any time during your main phase, aside from during combat. Now that's where action comes in. So action is going to be your instant speed, but you can only use it during what's called the action step. Now the action step happens during combat. So what'll happen, say I declare an attack. Now, my choices in this current situation would be to attack my opponent's shield area or attack their creature here. So, I'm going to attack this creature. Now, that goes through the block step. There are cards that have an ability called blocker, where they can intercept an attack and change it to theirself. In that instance, you would tap them to declare that they were blocking. Resting is tapping. I'm going to keep saying tapping. So, this is now declared. My opponent now has the priority in the action step to play an action. If they do, then I get priority to play an action. If they don't, I still get priority to do that. So, let's say I'm attacking that, and my opponent doesn't have a play, and I have one of these in hand. I can play this using its action to bounce this back to hand instead. Now, combat is already declared. My attack won't go through to the shield area, but this won't deal its 1 damage back to my guy. Alright, now let's look back at the shield area here. So my EX base was destroyed a bit ago. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to pay 2, and I have this white base that I'm going to play. Now, most bases have the same ability, which is deploy and add 1 of your shields to your hand. It's kind of the drawback of playing a base card. You're removing 1 of your life points, essentially, to get a defender in the shield area. Now, when this happens, you don't reveal that card, you don't flip it as though it was broken by damage, you just put it in your hand. So I'm going to do that. Now, this base also has an activate ability. Now, it's not a unit, so it's not, it doesn't have summoning sickness like units do. So, in this case, this has an activate ability that I can use during my main once per turn by paying 2. And this one's situational. Depending on the number of units that I have on the field, I get to make a token. So it's going to be 1 of these, depending on how many units I have. That's specific to this card. So, we are going to pretend that the turn that I played this and activated it, I had 2 units on the field, so it gives me a 1-1. If I had 1 unit, it would give me a 2-2, and if I had 0, it would give me a 3-3. Now let's talk about how pilots work. This is one of the primary mechanics in the game. This is very important. You're going to use it a lot. So, I have this Gundam MA form. Now it says, when paired with a white base team pilot, I draw a card. Now that is the instant that it is paired with a pilot. Now at the bottom here, you'll see it says Amuro Ray. That is its link condition. Now, certain cards are going to have link condition, some of them just don't. That is how you get haste. In this case, it's called rush. If it's paired with its pilot, it will have haste the turn that it's paired, and then it gets to do something. So for this guy, I have this Amuro Ray. It costs 1, it's a level 4, but Gundam MA is a level 5, so if I have this on the field, I'm already level 4, because I have 5 resources. So, what I'm going to do, I'll pay 1, and put Amuro underneath of this. Now, you'll see we got some stuff going on. So, first and foremost, Amuro, when paired with anything, is going to give it +2/+1. That is just base. However, we get a few things because of what we did with the pair. So, this says, when it's paired, I draw a card with a white base team pilot. Amuro is white base team. You can see the different traits here. So, we draw a card. Also, Amuro himself says, when paired, I choose an enemy unit with 5 or less HP and rest it, tap it. So, boom. I get to draw a card, I get to tap down a thing. Now, since this card wants Amuro, and this is Amuro, not only do I get those 2 effects, but now I get to swing this turn with a 6/4. Additionally, you'll have some pilots that also double as command cards. So you'll see here, it says command and pilot. This is Katra. You can use it as essentially a fog spell, or you can hook it up to a unit. So now let's check out some link abilities specifically. Now, as we established, a link is when the unit has the pilot that it is asking for. So in this case, with my Wing Gundam, it's asking for Hero Yui. There he is. So, if I have these like this, Hero has a link ability, so this unit gets an additional +1/+1 if it's linked. So, not only does he give the +2/+1, but also a +1/+1 because they have a link. Same thing over here with Tallgeese and Zex. It links with Tallgeese. During my turn, if this unit destroys an enemy unit with battle damage, I draw a card. Now, these things only happen if they are linked with the unit and the pilot that want each other. Now, I have another card here that has when paired, like we saw with the other Gundam card. So, if I had Hero on this instead, I would still get that pair ability, and this is when paired, so the instance that it is paired, as opposed to during link, which is constant. I choose an enemy unit with 2 or less HP and rest it. Now that would still happen. However, this guy is not getting this link ability, and he's not getting haste, because they're not linked. Now, a unit can only have 1 pilot. When it is equipped with a pilot, you can't move that pilot onto a different unit, and if this card were to move zones, the pilot would go with it. If it's bounced to my hand, the pilot's going to my hand. If it goes to the trash, the pilot goes to the trash. Now let's talk about a few different keywords. These are just abilities that cards have sometimes. So, this gun cannon has Repair 1. Repair 1 is kind of a blue-white ability. So at the end of turn, this unit recovers a specified number of HP. The specified number is 1. Breach is another common ability. It works similar to how Trample works, piercing if you're a Yu-Gi-Oh player, and it says Breach 5, so if this destroys a unit, I'm going to deal 5 damage to the shield area. Now, that means it would destroy this, but it is not going through to the shield. It is going to do 5 damage to whatever is next in line here. Additionally, you'll see underneath of that reminder text for breach that there's some boulder text, which is another ability that Wing Gundam has. This unit may choose an active enemy unit that is level 4 or lower as its attack target, meaning that if this thing was untapped, normally I wouldn't be able to attack it, but Wing Gundam does not care and will be able to attack it and get that breach 5. Now this one helps explain how combat works a little bit more. So, I can activate it during main. Once per turn, I can pay 4 resources, and set this unit as active, meaning that I can declare an attack with this, hit a unit, or hit the shield area. Then I can pay 4 to untap it. Since it's untapped, I can attack with it again. Your attacks don't all happen in order. You don't lose your attacks after you're done declaring attacks. You just get to attack when you have the opportunity to attack, dictated by the cards that you have. Okay, so with all that information out there, let's imagine the game has gone on for a while, I keep getting hit, I'm out of shields, I get hit again, what happens? Well, I don't have a card that has blocker, I can't decide to block, I get hit again, the game is over, I lose. Also, here's a card with the blocker keyword because I forgot. Alright, so we know how the game works. Now, let's look at some universal things when it comes to deck building and how you're actually going to get into the game. So, right now, until the end of this month, there are 4 colors in this game. They're adding purple at the end of this month for the next set. Well, right now, you have red, white, green, and blue. And they pretty much do exactly what you think they do. So red does a lot of direct damage, a lot of shock effects, things like that, a lot of pinging. White does a lot of untapping shenanigans and lowering opponents' attack power, which is more blue, but a lot of untapped shenanigans. Green ramps and makes big things. In this instance, ramping is usually going to be making an EX resource, which is that one-time use land that we talked about. There are some cards that will play a rested resource from your resource deck, a tapped land. And then blue. Blue does what blue does. Now, even though I don't have any black cards on hand, we have seen black cards, and a lot of what they do is damaging your own units or sacrificing your own units to give them buffs. Now, during deck building, your deck cannot be more than 2 colors. 2 colors. No shards here, unfortunately. 2 color decks. Now, unlike Magic, the colors don't really have any effect on the timing of when you're going to be able to play your stuff. You don't have to worry about making a different mana base for your colored decks because every deck uses the same exact thing. It is a deck of 5 resource cards, and you get 1 each turn, and they all tap for the same thing. Now, these are sample resources. When you crack a pack of cards, your resources are usually going to look something like this. They're usually pictures of characters or Gundams, and they're really cool. Additionally, you can get different EX base tokens, so the EX base isn't always going to look the same, but it is the exact same card. So now you know you have a 10-card resource deck. You can't go above that. You can have a total of 5 EX resources, meaning you can have a total of 15 mana at any given time. And your deck is a 50-card deck. As far as miscellaneous stuff goes, your resource deck should have different sleeves than your main deck, so you don't wind up shuffling them into your deck and them accidentally winding up in your shield area and making a big mess. You can only have 4 units in a deck with the same name. Same goes for commands, pilots, all that. You can only have 4 ofs, but that is relevant because you saw my Wing Gundam earlier. This is a different Wing Gundam, completely different card, but it has the exact same name. so I can only have a total of 4 Wing Gundams. However, you also saw my Wing Gundam Bird Mode, different name, I'm allowed to have 4 of them separately. There is a limit to how many units you're allowed to have on the field at once, and that's 6. You can't go above 6 ever, including tokens. Can't happen. Like I said before, your base is not a unit, if there was a base there, so you can have that as well. Additionally, you can only have 1 base. So, if this thing was looking ragged, had 4 damage on it or something, I can play a different base, and when I do, it's going to destroy the other one. And then this one's abilities will activate. Tokens work very similarly to the way that they work in Magic. If they are destroyed or put to your hand or anything, they will be removed from the game. However, they do hit that zone first, which is important when considering pilots. So if I put a pilot on this token and it gets bounced into my hand, that pilot is going to stay in my hand, even if this token is going to be removed from the game afterwards. Also, the only limit to how many cards you can play a turn is how many resources you have available, very similar to mana in Magic. So, I can pay 3, play my Wing Gundam Bird Mode, trigger, create an EX resource token, boom, and then I can pay 1 to play Hero underneath. And if I have another 1-drop, I can burn that EX resource and play that too. And finally, cards that have an activate main ability, they can use that even if they cannot legally attack this turn. So haste doesn't really affect your abilities, it just affects your ability to attack. This thing could come down this turn, activate its ability, which is support 2, buff a thing, and then go from there. Okay, one last finally. We mentioned the EX resource, how it is a one-time use, and we mentioned level, which counts the number of total resources that you have. So, the way that this will affect your level, I am a level 3 right now with 2 resources and an EX. I can crack this and pay 2. So I have 3. Now right now doing that, I am a level 3. I can play a level 3 card. After that happens, I am no longer level 3. I'm level 2 now, I have 2 resources. Hi, Val from the future here. I played a 2-cost card in that last clip, and I really should not have cracked that EX resource because it only costs 2. So pretend that I played this instead. It's a level 3 cost. I know that was a huge amount of information. I probably missed some things. There are a lot of keywords that I didn't show because I can't possibly. I don't have every card. So if you have questions, hopefully I can answer them. Feel free to ask me. My name is Valerie Fatality, all one word. You can find me everywhere that you can type that in. And hopefully this got you excited for Gundam. I really like this game and I'm going to play a lot more of it. And I hope I get to play with you someday too.